I'm going to start the lesson off assuming everyone knows the rules of Go, how to capture, how liberties work, and how a connected group of stones work, and how two eyes work. Now with that out of the way, let's dive right into the 9x9 mastery lesson. In a game of 9x9, there are about 5 or 6 different common moves for the first move. A move I suggest all the double-digit Q players to use is using a 3-3. This is the safest way to build territory, and especially when you're starting off, this is a great way to build territory and expand from the corner. This develops your Go foundations and develop your fundamental skills. With this move, black has a very solid corner on the top right side, and let's say white also does the same. Black now has 2 very nice corners, and with 1 more stone toward the center, black has built a nice territory on the side of the board. Now, if white follows through, black can then keep developing on this empty side and this empty side. So this is generally an idea of how a territory or corners work on a 9x9 Go game. A few other common starting moves is a 3-4 point. This 3-4 point, there are 8 3-4 points. All of these 3-4 points are identical on the first move. So we call them 3-4 point, it is because it is 3 lines across and 4 rows up or 4 rows down. That's why we call it the 3-4 point. Another common way to start off the game is playing a 4-4. There are 4 of these points on the board, 1, and then these 3 are all the possible 4-4 points. 3 more common starting moves is the center, the tengen, and the center there is many fun things you can do when you start off with the center. You might have heard that in Go, corners, then sides, then the center, but on a 9x9 Go game, this rule doesn't apply here. The board is very small. If you take the center straight away, you basically have access to all 4 different corners. You can also play a 5-4 point, which is also very common and quite popular in a 9x9 Go game. And finally, you can play a 5-3 point. This is also a very common and quite a popular move as well. After you've chosen your first move, make sure to occupy 1 more corner. You want to have 2 corners occupied. So the next move can be the same thing, one of those moves. For example, a 3-4 point, a 4-4 point, a 3-3 point, 3-5 point, all of these are possible. Or you can take a 3-4 point over here, or use a knight's move distance to take a 4-4 point. All of these moves are possible. Even a tengen taking the center is also okay as well. So when you start off the game, even if you play a 4-4 point, make sure to take another corner as well. You want to make sure that you are building as much territory as possible in your first few moves. Because these first few moves are very important, and they will decide whether or not you will have a good territory advantage or if you don't have a good territory advantage. If you're playing an even game, komi is very important. The board has only 81 points, and both players are going to play approximately 20 moves each, so the board is left with about 40 points, sometimes 50 points on the board. Both players share these remaining points. And with black going first, black always gives white 6.5 points komi. So if you're taking the black pieces, you have to make sure in your first 5 to 10 moves, you're doing the best you can at securing a bigger area of the board. You want to make sure you have a bigger framework than white, because you have to give white 6.5 points komi. That is the basic strategy for 9x9 Go game if you're playing the black pieces. If black chooses to start off with a 5-5 or the center point, and this, depending on what white plays, the 3-5 or a 3-3 or a 3-4, it is a good idea black plays elsewhere and black takes another point on the board. So right now, black has a very nice influence toward the top side. White might need to follow up, and black can defend his own influence, such as using a blocking move. If white extend, black can block one more time and defend this part of the territory. If white goes over here using a diagonal move, black can defend of this territory on the top side. And if this move is threatening to enter black's territory, black should defend. And this one is white's temper. White wins the temper by playing this sequence because black has to defend this weakness. White might finish off the endgame by playing this move, trying to enter black's territory. Black block, white connect. Black can push, threaten this weakness, because if white doesn't play, black is going to capture these 3 white stones. So white defends the weakness, black takes this point, and white takes this final point. This game is a very close game on the board. Both players actually have very similar amount of territory. Exchanging this move for this move is a good idea. Black can save some territory. But after commit, white is going to win the game by 4.5 points. Why did white win so much? The reason is, in the first 3 to 5 moves, black didn't gain a big enough territory. This area is smaller than this area. Because if black plays this area, black can actually enter white's territory on the next turn. So if we play out this game, white defends, black goes down, white defends, black blocks over here. You can see that after this game, this is white's temper because black has a weakness. White might go down, threatening to enter black's territory. Black blocks. This one's a weakness, black blocks, and white connects. You see, but in this game, the result is black is going to win the game by 2.5 points. So taking a bigger area of the board first is extremely important in a 9x9 Go game. And you can see that it only takes is one trial and error with playing one move and playing another move. And that is going to be the very big difference with the results in a 9x9 Go game. In the next lesson, we will talk about simple opening ideas for each of these starting points. See you guys in the next lesson. Bye bye. In the first lesson of a 9x9 mastery, we talked about how it is generally a very good idea to start off with a corner and take 2 corners and develop from there. But in this lesson, we'll talk about what happens when your opponent plays around your cornerstone. How do you deal with it? And what are the ways or structure you should think about when your opponent plays these kinds of moves? Let's start off with a basic 3-3. Now, if your opponent attaches next to your stone, empty attaching, just attaching next to your stone, you can always use a hane or a bending move. If they try to cut, then this is a losing fight for your opponent. You can simply choose to attack the stone on either side, go down. These stones have to go out. So if white goes out over here, you can capture this one white stone. White might use a double Atari and capture this one black stone, but black has a much greater territory than white in this position. Black can use a basic shape, a simple move such as a knight's move. White use a knight's move to build more territory. Black push, white extend, black push, and after both players play out the endgame, you can see in this position, even the most simple way to play out the endgame, let's make sure black reinforces one more time. Black was still able to win this game by 3 points. So if your opponent straight away attaches next to your stone, usually it is not a good idea. If they attach next to your stone, you can always use a hane or a bending move. If they go back and they strengthen their stones, so when your opponent goes back, they have no more weakness. But black still has a weakness. So it is a good idea for black to secure the weakness. There's a few ways you can play about this. The safest way is just simply connect. If you want a bit more territory, you can use a descent. This cut, everybody watching this video, you should remember, this cut does not work. Black is going to Atari and push down, and these two stones are captured. A more aggressive way Black can deal with this position is Black can cover on top. Don't let White go towards the center. Black covers on top and make sure that White only gets a little bit of territory on the sides. The goal isn't to kill White, your opponent. The goal is to make sure you just have more territory than your opponent and you'll win the game. Let's say White uses another move, a bit further away, a little bit further away, such as this move. Then your goal is always two things. Direction of play, choosing the direction to let your stones go out. Number two, strengthen your stones and build territory. So if we don't do anything, let's say we go over here, it is very easy for White to use a diagonal move, hane, bend, and double bend. So now we have a weakness. Even if we're Atari, we have a weakness because capturing the stone doesn't work. These two stones were captured. Black saves the weakness, and you can see in this position, Black barely has any territory. Black is only reduced to 6 to 7 points. If your opponent can seal you in and make you close you into a small area of your territory, make sure you let your stones run away and go towards the center. Or at the very least, build some territory. A safe way for Black to handle this position is use a one space jump. You don't want to go like this because it's way too slow. Because if you do moves like this, White is going to keep jumping and Black is going to have a very small territory. Black is going to spend 4 moves and only made a little bit of territory. So if you're going to run out towards the center, there are 3 common shapes I want you guys to remember. And it is very useful, especially in a 9x9 Go game. The first one is a one space jump. Second one is a knight's move. So if you guys have played chess before, this is how knight moves. This is the shape of a knight's move. Or in Chinese, we call it the flying move, like flying, the stone is flying out. And the third shape is a diagonal move. Now all of these shapes, I actually teach them in the main course, the double digit Q to single digit Q course. But especially in the 9x9 boards, these 3 shapes are extremely important. And a 2 slightly less common shapes for double digit Q is a 2 space jump and a large knight's move. But we'll get to those shapes in a single digit Q lessons. So when your opponent approaches like this, it is a good idea for Black to use a knight's move. Okay, using a knight's move, this stone has jumped out toward the center. It is going in this direction and it is building this territory. So it has already built this territory, this part of the territory. Later on, this stone gives Black the direction to go out this way and claim this part of the territory. White, let's say, build his own territory, then Black can jump over here and now Black has a very nice territory on the right side of the board. If White attaches over here, then Black has 2 choices again. The safer choice is extend. A slightly more aggressive choice is using a hane, the bending move. The bending move gets a little bit more territory, but it does leave a weakness. So if White is very daring, White can cut and start a fight. But if White is not very daring and White just, let's say, extend over here, then you can keep pushing, and you build even more territory. In this position, I will play the bending move myself because there is a lot of space for Black to develop. And right now in this fight, Black has 3 stones, White has 2 stones. So this fight is good for Black in this position. One more thing to cover with a 3-3 point is if your opponent approaches like this. When your opponent approaches a stone like this, again, it is a good idea to strengthen your stones first and give your stones a direction to jump away. Once your stones are completely settled in the corner and you have a good amount of territory, then it is a good idea and it is the right time to play elsewhere and build territory elsewhere. This is my suggestion when you are playing the 9x9 and when your opponent approaches your stone very early on. Now we've covered the 3 points. Let's cover a 3-4 points. What happens when your opponent approaches your 3-4 point very early on? If you play the 3-4 point, again, if your opponent plays elsewhere, let's say a 4-4 or a 3-4, then it is a good idea for you to jump out and take the second corner, either this way or this way. But we know that in Go, that might not always be the case. Your opponent might want to approach your corner and provoke and start a little fight. For example, if your opponent approaches the corner straight away with a nice approach, what do? Well, here's a few things you can do. By making this stone strong and taking another corner, you can use hit two birds with one stone. Use a knight move. You're taking this corner and you're also strengthening this stone. You can also use a one-space jump, strengthening this stone and building territory in this corner. So let's say we use a nice move in this position. White plays, let's say, attach. Then this stone is weak, so you have to be careful of the strength and weakness of the stone. We can use a hane, because this white stone is also very weak. We're weakening this white stone. If white descends, then we can extend, strengthen our stone and strengthen our liberties, making more liberties. If white tries to attack and capture this one black stone, here guys, before I move on, is this black stone worthwhile to save? The answer is no. This is only one stone. So black can play elsewhere, takes the next biggest place on the board, such as taking another corner. If white wants to take one stone, then you just keep building your territory and keep expanding your territory elsewhere. You lose a little bit, but you gain a lot more territory. So this is a good result for black in this position. Let's be a little bit more realistic and let's give white a few stronger moves. Let's say white defends and secures the corner over here. Then you see this problem is solved. You solved by answering to this white's approach. Now you can just play elsewhere and build more territory, claim more of the board, and make more territory elsewhere on the board. Now playing a move like 3-3 is a very good choice and a very steady option. What if white used this approach? What can you do? Here, pretty much the same thing. You can use a knight move, strengthen the stone, and build territory on the top side. If white does the same thing, attach and go back, then you already know that you've already strengthened your stones. You can use a one-space jump and take more territory elsewhere. If white keeps on attacking these stones, then black can keep building territory elsewhere. Taking a bigger corner is much bigger than taking a second line move. What I mean by that is, look at these black stones. These stones are on the fourth line and third line. But if white keep on playing on the second line trying to capture one stone, it doesn't matter. White only gets 1 point of territory by playing on the second line. Whereas you get to take a very large corner, and on the third line you have 2 points. So after 2 to 3 moves of exchanges, then it is very clear that black is going to be in a much better position territorial wise. I hope that was very clear. Explaining like why you shouldn't worry too much about taking a tiny bit of the corner territory or playing the second line, especially early on in the game. If white attaches, let's say white attach, look at this stone. This stone is a little bit weak. Let's strengthen it, extend. If white push, now is this stone strong? Yeah, much stronger. Is this stone strong? Yeah, much stronger. Does black have territory? Yes, black has territory, which means black can play away from this group. This fight is currently finished. So black can play, for example, a 3-3 point and try to take some of white's territory. And this kind of move really works because let's say white really wants to try to capture or attack this one black stone. Black needs all the basic shapes. Hane, the bending move. If white hane is over here, then black can just cut and capture this one white stone. If white extends, black can keep building more territory. Diagonal move, and then tiger's mouth. Black has very nice territory in the corner. And black has also reduced white's territory as well. But this is a little bit more advanced stuff. A little bit more advanced. This is about like strong double digit Q to single digit Q level. The example I just showed just then. When you play a 3-4 points and your opponent doesn't build his own territory, and instead tries to approach your cornerstone, now you know what to do. From a 3-4 point, the ninth move is pretty much universal. You can also play around with different moves such as a one space jump, strengthening this one black stone, or you can even try to counter-attack white by playing another 3-4 points. You can always test these different moves out and see how you go with different positions. One final thing is, if white uses an attachment attaching next to your stone, I suggest using a hane and defending your own territory. So if white extends, you can keep pushing and extend on the other side. You build a very nice territory and your stones are very strong. If your opponent tries to use a hane or a bending move, you can use this Atari, utilize your opponent's weakness, and save your own weakness. This way your stones are quite strong, they're solid, and it also has quite a nice territory as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson on how to handle 3-3 and 3-4 points, especially when your opponent is approaching your stones instead of taking their own corners. See you guys in the next lesson, where we'll talk about 4-4 and 5-5. Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we will look at how to handle a 4-4 point or 5-4 point, and when your opponent attaches or play around your stones. So once again, if you play the 4-4 and your opponent plays elsewhere, like your opponents play very far away from your stone, you can just take another corner and develop from here. This is pretty simple, and you've built territory on the top sides. Next, you can maybe use a kick or a one space jump. For example, you can use a kick and then one space jump over here, and then build your own territory on the top side. For example, descending over here and securing your territory. But as you all know, not every single Go game will go as you imagine. Sometimes your opponent will play a bit more aggressive and really play some moves that you did not really prepare for. For example, you played a 4-4 point. What if your opponent look at this 4-4 point and think, okay, how about I play a joseki? And they play a 3-4 point, and it's also an approach, nice approach to your 4-4 point. Here I will give you a few ideas and a few ways to think about this. So your opponent played a 3-4 point, which is taking the corner and also approaching your blackstone. In this position, if you play a basic joseki, for example, kick and then knight's move, white has already strengthened these stones and white's already built territory on the bottom side. So with another move, if white gets this move, c4 right now, and black still needs one more move to enclose this territory, then the chances are white is going to end up winning the game. White is going to be in very big favor to win the game. The size of the territory is already quite similar, and white gets 6.5 points Komi. So even though black might be able to get a bit more points than white, for example, let's say when the game plays out like this, and okay, let's say white defends over here, and black does end up with a little bit more points than white. Okay, you can see in this game, after this game is finished, white is still going to win the game by 2 points, and white did play one inefficient move during this game, during this example. So white already has a very nice influence after the third move. The inefficient move I played for white was playing over here. If white plays a diagonal move like this, white will win the game by even more. So when your opponent approaches to your stone like this, especially on a 4-4 point, usually you gotta think of it as a different approach when playing 9x9. You have a corner, your opponent takes a corner. Then you go ahead and take the second corner. Okay? Take the second corner or use a one space jump. This one space jump also takes this corner. If your opponent uses basic joseki and tries to enter your corner, you can ignore your opponent in this position and take the third corner. Now you have 3 corners. If white takes the 3-3, okay, now you block. These white stones, yes, white has taken a corner, but white's territory is pressed very low on the second and third line, whereas black's territory is quite large on the left side. So black gave up 1 corner, but black took 2 other corners. So this is quite a good result for black. Knight's move can also work. If your opponent slides into the corner, then you can go and take another corner. If your opponent takes a 3-3 and really takes a corner right now, you can use a knight's move. Try to enter white's territory, and you're building more territory on this side as well. So with this 9x9, it's quite important that you stay flexible, and if your opponent really wants a corner, you can give it up, build strength elsewhere, and play elsewhere. What if white jumps into the 3-3 immediately? Now I've got good news for you. If white jumps in the 3-3 immediately on a 9x9 board, this is extremely winning for black. All you have to do is play the basic joseki. You block, white extend to build some territory. You extend, white might use a knight's move to save the corner. You use a diagonal move, and if white use a basic joseki for the 3-3 invasion, Atari, and then connect the weakness, all you have to do in this position is play a 2-5 point. And after you play 2-5 point, look at the territorial difference. Yeah? Black has just way more territory than white has. So in this position, it's pretty much game over already in this position. You might wonder why I play the 2-5 move. The 2-5 move, later on in the single digit queue or the down levels, I will go deeper into this move. This is a very special move in a 9x9 Go game. We covered if white approaches the corner or jumps into 3-3. What if your opponent approaches like this with a 1-space jump? Then again, pretty simple. You can take another corner. If your opponent takes another corner, if white takes another corner, you might think, okay, this is getting a bit even in terms of territory. Now you try to play the next biggest point, the shared points on the board. So if white gets this point, it's very big. If black gets this point, it's also very big. So black can play here. Black can play this diagonal move, trying to jump into white's territory. Black can descend, white block, and black can play another move over here. Take the endgame, take this endgame, extend, white might squeeze, and then you save your weakness. In this position, I think the game is quite even in this position. And at the end, black wins the game by 2.5 points. Finally, what happens if your opponent jumps and attaches next to your stone? Here is where you have to do a little bit of judgment. There are 2 ways to go about this. Once again, you can use a hane, defend your corner, connect, which is the same as the 3-3 example in the last video. Or you can use a descent this way. If white takes a corner, then you transpose into the 3-3 invasion joseki. Another variation is you can use a hane and try to fight this way. If white extend, you can block, and this is another 3-3 invasion joseki. If white plays here, you can use a double hane, and this should be a playable position and quite nice position for black. If your opponent attaches your stone from above, then you can just build your own territory. For example, descent, securing the corner, or extending out on e6 and developing a side territory. This white stone is still pretty weak, and black already built a very solid territory. Now let's move on to 5-5. 5-5 is where things can get very, very interesting. When you start off with a 5-5, all of these moves, around this point is pretty even. They are quite equal. According to the AI, playing any of these moves will be a half a point game under perfect play. But for this mastery 9x9 mastery lesson, I will give you the most down to earth and most structured way to go about when your opponent plays any of these moves, or if your opponent play any of these attaching moves. So these 4 attaching moves, your opponent might be playing there as well, and I'll show you a few ways to handle them. let's get rid of all the letters. And if your opponent, the most common way in this position is either play the 3-3, which you can respond with jumping down and jumping over here. If your opponent over here, in this position takes the topside territory, then this is quite likely a winning game for black. Your opponent might also play a 3-5 point. So any of this, or this. Then you have a few ways to answer this move. One of the ways is a knight's move. You can use a 1-space jump. Or the simplest way I recommend you guys, if you use a 5-5 point, especially with double DGQ, is to use a knight's move this way. You defend your own territory and you try to build territory over here. So right now in double DGQ, there is zero purpose looking into AI moves. But right now, it is very important that you know what you're trying to do and you have a good sense of territory, even on a 9x9 board. Your opponent might use a knight's move, and here you can just simply use an attach, secure a territory, or you can do a little bit of fighting. Use a tiger's mouth, your opponent retreats, you extend, and you're threatening a push and cut weakness. Your opponent's white might connect, and here you can use another basic shape, either diagonal move or a knight's move, and keep building that territory. This will be quite a nice result for black as well. And on the perfect play for white in this position, I think black still will be able to get a winning position in this position. So right now, yeah, so black is still going to win this game. So when you play a 5-5 point and your opponent plays some fancy moves such as 3-3, 3-5, or like 3-4 point, don't worry. You play away and build your territory on the other side of the board. Now, what happens if your opponent attaches next to your stone? This can be very annoying. So here is one little trick I want you to think about. If your opponent attaches over here, this is a 4th line, you're on the 5th line. As long as you can get the territory on the top side and give your opponent the bottom side territory, you will end up winning the game. So if a game ends up like this, and let's say you have to defend once in your own territory, your opponent, white has 27 points, black has 36 minus 1, black has 35 points. So as long as you enclose the door from the middle, you will win the game. If you're making the top side territory and your opponent is attaching on e4 the bottom side, as long as you make territory on the top side, without giving away your center line, you'll be able to win the game. However, if you play a little bit passive, for example, you go over here and you let your opponent do a bit of the pressing and you lose some territory over here, then it is quite likely that your opponent can catch up. So let's say both players get the same thing. Black gets this, white gets this. In this position, black is winning by 1 point on the boards. And by playing a little bit more passive, black actually lost about 7 points worth of value. And white will win this game by 5.5 points. So it is very simple when your opponent attach. If your opponent attach this way, it's still very simple. Make sure you can give your opponent the side they attach on is completely fine. You have a bigger territory. And by playing like this, you'll end up with 8 to 9 points winning on the boards. And you can win the game. So that is quite straightforward. I'll see you guys in the next lesson where I will be reviewing a double DGQ game with the openings. I'll see you guys in the next lesson where I'll be reviewing a double DGQ game and we'll talk about the opening and some middle game fights and some directional play and judgments. See you guys in the next lesson. Bye-bye. Hello everyone. Welcome to the final lesson of the double DGQ 9x9 mastery course. In this lesson, we will look at how to play openings. In this lesson, we'll talk about how we play middle games and how to play basic endgames, and some simple patterns you should learn about. Let's say both players start off with a very solid opening, both get 2 corners, and black decides to secure the right side territory. Something like this happen. Okay, let me make it a little bit cleaner. Let's have black play this move, just so there's no AI such as like a H5, 2-5 kind of move for the AI. Let's say both players get into this kind of situation. It is a standstill. Black has a right side territory, white has a left side territory. Now it is time to decide where on the board is the biggest area to take for white. So we're going to play for white and for black. Biggest area I mean by open area. So can your opponent go into your territory, or can you go into your opponent's territory? That's the biggest area. The second biggest area is invadable territory. Is your territory invadable? If it's a yes, that's very big, and if you secure it, you get rid of any invasion threats. And number 3, you take and occupy the shared areas. So what I mean by this is, look at this position. Black can actually jump into white's territory with a knight move, a basic shape. What should white do? In this position, if white wants to defend this area, white can use a one-space jump, defend his left side territory. And once again, in this position, white's territory is completely secure, and it's black's turn to find the next biggest move on the board. Is black's territory invadable? Not really. Is black's territory able to be entered by white? Black's territory can be entered by white. White can jump into G9 or attach and enter black's territory. So in this position, black has a few choices. Black can either defend the territory over here or take another area of the board and threaten white a little bit. This one, we call that move a bit passive because it is defending and not creating an initiative. So to create an initiative, black can consider using a nice move. And this move threatens to enter white's territory with this move on the next turn. So as long as white doesn't threaten this turn, let's say white plays somewhere else, black can enter and break white's territory apart. So this is a great way for black to handle this position. Now, for white can block. So if white blocks over here, this is pretty basic and standard stuff. Black can go over here, threaten to enter white's territory one more time. So these are all forcing moves. They're all the moves that create initiative, the moves that create a response from your opponent. Now, black can play another move in this position by using the bend. This move actually secures this area of the territory, and then it also threatens to Atari this one white's turn. So if black gets this A, white gets B, black can push into white's territory. Let me show you. So if white doesn't respond, black can Atari at A, threaten this stone. If white doesn't save it, then black just gets a stone for free. And this is a good result for black. But if white saves the stone, black can even push into white's territory, and see, right now black has completely reduced and taken white's corner territory. If white connects, then black can consider, okay, defending this area. Let's go on with this game. What is the next biggest place on the board for both players? Well, for white, it is this area. This is a shared area or a common area. To take the endgame, you need to make sure here is the endgame. To take the endgame and play a very efficient endgame, you need to make sure that white is actually making a move that is bigger than the next area of the board, and they're taking like a shared empty space. This part is empty, so white can play a nice move. This part is also empty, white can play a diagonal move. But you see the difference. The difference is this move is on the first line, whereas this move is on the second line. So occupying second line move is much better than taking a first line move. So white can play this move, black blocks, white can save the stone by going back, black can take this move, white blocks, black can take this move, white push, black block, white Atari the stone, black connects. These are all endgame moves. So endgame is about like when all the second line and the third line has been played and you're left with a first line endgame. Endgame is about like 1, 2 to 3 points per move. But when the second line endgame is open, the second line endgame can be worth up to 6 to 8 points per move. That's like the value of one endgame move. So let's let white play this move. Black push. White can Atari here first, exchanges Atari, block, and black save his weakness in his territory. And white play this move. Now this game is finished, and we can count out the points. Let's use a score estimator. And in this position, white wins the game by 1.5 points. So both players have no territory. Both players have no captures. White has 24 points. Black has 29 points. And after 6.5 points economy, white wins the game by 1.5 points. Extremely close game. I hope you guys enjoyed this example. And in the next example, I will show you guys a more chaotic and a fighting style game. Welcome back, everyone. In the last lesson, we looked at a basic 9x9 game example. In this lesson, we will look at a 9x9 game, but it is much more chaotic, more fighting, and I will show you the exact ways to face a middle game and face an end game when the board gets a bit chaotic. So let's have black start off with 3-5. Let's have black start off with a middle point, the 10 game. White plays a 3-4, black jumps, and white plays the next corner. Now, black decides to not defend the corner over here, but attack this one white stone. Black goes over here, attacking this one white stone. White uses a jump, and in this position, black decides, okay, I will use this jump and defend this corner territory. White jumps as well, make a one space jump, building the corner territory and expanding from the stone. Black uses a nice move. White block, black push up, trying to save this weakness. White now has a dilemma. White's both groups are alive, more or less alive, but white is in a weaker territorial position. So what should white do? Here is where tempo is very important. You need to take moves and play the endgame moves that gives you the tempo. You can win a tempo. What I mean by winning a tempo is you make a move, but if your opponent doesn't respond, your next counter attack, your next follow up is going to have consequences. I'll give you guys an example. White can play h5. If black doesn't respond to this move and black plays the next endgame move, the consequence is quite heavy. White can play g4, and this entire black's territory has been completely reduced. Which means black has to respond to this attachment. Black can respond with a bend, blocking white from entering black's territory. White can use this move, weakening this black stone. Black connects, or black and Atari first, and then connect. Maybe connect here or connect over here. This one's maybe a bit more... Maybe connect over here is a bit more safer. White can now play the next set of forcing moves, or moves with tempo. Right now this is settled. This group is settled. We call it settled because white has a territory. Very nice territory. And here I see a lot of beginners make a mistake thinking, oh, I'll Atari this time. Black is going to connect. If black connects, then good. You got a tempo. But if you're playing stronger players, black is not going to connect to this stone. Black is not going to answer. But this move is way too small. See this on the first line, so on the edge of the board. Black is going to play the second line. So if you capture a stone on the first line and black enters your territory on the second line, black is going to do a lot more damage than your capture on the first line. So when this group is settled, you've played out the second line moves and you got tempo. Don't force every single Atari. Your opponent doesn't have to connect to Ataris. They can play elsewhere. Okay? So the best play in this position is to play the next endgame move, which is a sente, or you win a tempo, which is d2. Yeah? d2 threatens to jump into black's territory. Black block, white can hane and connect. Black plays tiger's mouth and save the corner territory. White can do this next set of tempo moves. White can play over here and connect, threatening this cut. But black has a very sneaky trick. Black plays this diagonal move. What do you do? Here you might have a dilemma. Do I capture here or do I just simply block? The way you should think about this is, if you capture here, whose consequence is heavier? Who will go through a bigger consequence? In this position, the answer is white. Because if white captures the stone, black jumps into white's territory. Not only does black take white's territory, black is also killing white as well. White doesn't have enough space to make two eyes. But you might think, okay, white, I can just Atari, and if black connects, I can connect over here. But here is another thing you need to consider. Whenever your opponent Atari, they don't have to connect. Whenever you Atari, your opponent doesn't have to connect. Your opponent can just simply reverse Atari, give up these two stones, and connect over here, and completely capture these 5 white stones. And in this position, white will not have enough territory to even get close to winning this game. So in this position, it is very important that white actually defends this part first. Defending this territory is much more important. Black might follow up with a bend and connect. Now, which is more important? The answer is saving the corner. White saves the corner, black saves the corner. White can squeeze over here and threaten these 3 black stones. Black saves the weakness, and white can finish off the endgame. So in this position, where is the biggest endgame for white? Where are the shared places, and where are the places both players can fight for? The answer is d4. If black plays d4, black gets 1 point on e4. If white gets d4, white potentially gets a point on c4. So playing d4 is potentially 2 points. Let's say white plays d4. Black goes over here, and here you should not keep pushing. You gotta be careful of what your opponent is trying to do. When black plays a d3, squeezing over here, black is trying to cut a c2 and capture these 3 white stones. So white should connect or save this weakness. Black connects. White can save the point on c4. Black can save the point on f4, because if white plays f5, black loses the point on f4. White can Atari, black connects, and this game is over. Fill up the neutral points, and it is time for us to count this game. So when we go ahead and count this game, we will see white wins the game by 3.5 points. White wins the game by 3.5 points. Again, one very close game, very close call, and this is more of a fighting game. Both players get the groups cut apart, and both players have to make sure the stones are alive. Hope you guys enjoyed this lesson, and you follow the principles from this game and the last example. So these 2 games shows you how to build territory, how to defend territory, and how to take tempo, win tempo in the endgame. That brings us to the end of these 2 game reviews, and in the next lesson, in the next video, I will show you guys a live example of me playing against a 10Q bot. See you in the next video. Bye bye. Hello everyone. In today's video, we'll be playing against a 10Q bot, the strongest bot in the double-digit Q phase, against AI Sensei's bots. We've already talked about, we should take 2 corners to start off the game. Let's follow that principle as well. Black plays a 3-4, we will play a 3-4 point as well. Let's play another 3-4 point. Black plays another 3-4, and the next move we will play a 4-4. We're taking 2 corners as well. My opponent just played on second line, trying to enter white's territory. If we simply block over here without looking at the entire board, we might have played the not so optimal move. This space and this space, which one is bigger? Yes, the bottom side is much bigger. So playing the bottom side is more important and much more urgent in this position. So white should play potentially a diagonal move, or in this position, I'll even consider playing a knight move. Both of these moves are fine at building the bottom side territory and expanding white's territory. So in this position, I will play a diagonal move. Black plays a knight move to defend the corner. In this position, I will show you a test strategy that single-digit Qs might be able to spot. Since we've played 10 Qs already, we're playing the double-digit Q, I will show you the next level of fighting and tactics. When there's a knight move, and your stone is very close to a knight move, you can consider one thing. You can consider the attachment on G3. Attaching and splitting apart the two black stones. When we attach over here, black can push, white can cut. If black captures a white stone, we'll be able to break into and split black's territory apart. So let's use an attachment and see what it looks like. Alright, so black did not answer to the attachment and instead jumps in the corner and try to play a very chaotic game. When we play a chaotic game, we want to make sure our stones are strong, our stones don't have weakness, and we attack one group at a time. If you have 4 different weak groups, it's very likely 1 or 2 of them is going to end up being dead. So, first of all, I want to split these 2 black stones apart. If black plays E2, black can connect back together. So I'm going to split black apart, and alright, this move is a blunder by my opponent. This move is creating more weakness for black. What black should do is either save this keystone, this stone in the corner, and build some territory in the corner, or try to save this black stone, or build the top side territory. But this stone, it is not going to connect here. Black can connect with f3, but obviously I am going to counter-attack this move. So, Atari, push up because I'm threatening to capture the 2 black stones. Black turns, we can block, still threatening to capture the black stones. And over here, I'll show you another technique, a fighting technique. Our 1 stone is under attack. If we connect, black gets to go back, and we can capture these 2 black stones. However, there is another way you can think about the position. What if we Atari these 2 black stones from the outside and connect all of our stones on the outside? Yes, that can work, because we are very strong. We've already taken black's corner. Now this corner is white's territory, and our stones are all connected. They'll have no weakness. Atari, black captures. Atari, black is going to... Oh, black didn't connect. How is my opponent 10Q if black didn't connect over here? Then this is a completely free capture. Okay, black connected stone. This game is already pretty much winning. This is a weakness. We can either connect over here or we can play G2. You see, if we play G2 and black tries to cut at F3, black would end up in a self-Atari and we can capture at F1. So G2 would be a more efficient move in this position. Black tries to go out, we can block because black group is not alive. And my opponent has resigned. Great game to my opponent. So this is how you can handle an example way to handle a chaotic game in a double-digit Q level. Make sure stones are strong. Have a clear mind at where is the biggest place on the board, even on a 9x9. If you can navigate through a 9x9 very clearly, 13x13 and 19x19, it is the exact same principles, but on a much bigger board. So on a 13x13, if there's a chaotic fight, you have to decide, okay, is territory more important, or capturing more important, or securing my stones more important? And that principle and that way of thinking is going to show even more when you're playing a 19x19 game. I can guarantee you, almost every 19x19 game, there will be some chaos. There will be some stones under attack, some stones not safe, and there'll be times where you are safe and you have territory. I hope you all enjoyed this live game and review and the commentary. Now your goal is to go ahead and play your own 9x9 game. Whether you're against a double-digit Q or a single-digit Q watching this video, go ahead, play your own game. And make sure you have a clear mind when you're playing the game. Navigate the boards, look at the biggest places on the board, the right direction of play, and make sure your stones are strong and they don't have too many weaknesses. And you'll be good to go. See you in the next lesson. Bye-bye. Hello everyone. This lesson we will go over and look at some double-digit Q endgame puzzles on a 9x9 Go boards. Let's get started. In this puzzle, what is the best way for black to finish the endgame? If black simply Hane connect and white gets this block, black is 1 point worse because this push is a sente for black. So black should push here first and then Hane and then connect. This is the best result for black in this position. In this position, black's into play and finish off the endgame in the most effective way possible. First of all, you try to find which place on the board still has value. There's this part that's value, and there's this move at G7 that has value. So which of these is a correct sequence? So in endgame, the timing and the sequence is very, very important. So playing here is a right sequence. This is sente, we get the tempo. We keep the initiative, we keep the tempo. We keep sente. And then playing this Hane and connect. That is puzzle solved. The best way to finish this endgame. That's the best way to finish this endgame for black. In this position, what is the best way for black to finish the endgame? Well, we have this Hane and connect. This is one valuable area. And the second valuable area is this Atari. So Atari here would be the best way because it is a sente. If white doesn't respond and white plays Hane and connect, black can capture and connect back, which is going to be the same value. Black goes here, black connects, and this is the best way to solve this endgame. Let's look at this position. There are two places that have value on the board. One, or actually in one place, only around here. But how can black extract the highest amount of value? By playing first. If black simply plays over here, takes 2 points, white plays over here, it is not the most ideal. It is 1 point worse, actually 2 points worse. So the best move for black in this position is to play e4. This move at e4, it is sente. It is threatening to enter white's territory. So this is the best sequence, and then black plays here. If white plays over here, we can push and then go back and protect ourselves with two points and protect our 2 points. So in the endgame, especially in a 9x9 Go game, develop the habit to make sure your endgame is really accurate, because in the 9x9 game, if you have a 2 point inaccuracy, that can flip the entire game around. There's only so many spaces on the board. 2 points is very big on a 9x9. So many games, I've seen so many games finish off with a half a point difference. So keep that in mind. When you're playing endgame, try to be as accurate as possible. In this position, blacks tend to play the endgame. Where is the best place for black? So first of all, find the valuable places on the board. There's this area and this snapback. But which one is more urgent? Well, the answer is Hane and connect, because this is a sente. If white does not answer to black's Hane and connect, black can follow up by cutting this one white stone and capturing this one white stone. So this move is much more urgent because it's a sente. It's a very big sente. It gives black the initiative. So black plays here first, and then black can use a snapback to capture these 2 white stones. And this move over here, 8-8, is actually worth 6 points. Black has 5 points, it takes away one of white's points. So it is 6 points in value. And this is the best way to play this endgame. In this position, what is black's best way to play the endgame? Currently, there are 2 open positions. Currently, there are 2 valuable positions on the board. There is this part and this part. How many points is this worth? Yeah, this is only worth 2 points. Okay, this is only worth 2 points. Now let's look at how can black reduce white's territory here in the most efficient way possible. If black goes over here, white is going to take the 2-point move. If black goes over here, white is going to take the 2-point move. So black has a very nice sequence over here, which is this attachment, f6. This attachment is very nice because white cannot capture this one black stone. So f6, and black can also enter with f7 and reduce more of white's territory. And after white answers, black can go back with his Hane and connect, and this is problem solved. Now let's go and do some harder puzzles, harder endgame puzzles. In this position, what is black's best endgame approach? Well, you might say to me, okay, isn't this Hane and connect, aren't they the same in value? You are correct, they are the same in value if you use a Hane. But black can utilize sente to get one extra point in this endgame. What can black do? Well, black can actually use a descent. So if black uses a descent at c9 and white gets a Hane and connect, black can attach at e9. So after black attaches at e9, it actually reduces 2 points of white's territory. So descent at c9 is the best move, white blocks, and then we go ahead and play this Hane and connect. You see the difference? Black plays here first, white were able to play c9, and then white connects. So this entire sequence, black gained 1 extra point. Let's go and dive into some harder puzzles. In this position, what is black's best way to play this endgame? So, this position, there are actually 3 places on the board that are valuable. Number 1 is squeezing over here and attacking these 4 white stones. So first of all, let's go here, and this is sente. Now there are 2 more valuable places. One is a Hane and connect, and the other one is Atari. Which one should black play? So if you remember sente, black should Atari first, and then Hane and connect. So playing the correct sequence, black was able to get all of the 3 endgame moves in this position. So black should be pretty happy. On this board, there are 3 valuable endgame positions. Here, here, and here. Yeah? But the right sequence of play will save you 1 point. So this position, we're going to look at potential follow-up value. Okay? So if black pushes over here, there's no more potential follow-up value. And if black plays like d9 then c9, c9 has no value. If white pushes d5 and then play d4, d4 has no value. However, if white gets f6 and then f7, both of these moves have a 1 point value. So f6 should be the first move black plays. After black plays f6, d9 and d5 is the same in value. White gets one, black gets the other one. However, if black gets the sequence wrong, white can play f6 and white can play f7 on the next move. So that will lose black 1 point. So the correct sequence is black plays f6 and then white gets one of them, black gets the other point. And this is the best way to handle this endgame. In this position, it is black's turn to play. How should black finish off this endgame? So there are 2 valuable positions on the board. One is Hane and connect, the other one is e7. Okay? When black Hane and connect, this is a sente. It is a very big sente. Black Hane and connect, black can capture a2, black can threaten to capture a2. So it is a no-brainer that in this position, black should Hane and connect first, and then play e7. So e7 is only worth 1 point. And this is problem solved. Alright, one final position. Black's turn to play and finish off the endgame. What should black do? So in this position, there are 3 valuable places on the boards. This one, a6, is worth 1 point. Capturing the stone is worth 2 points. connecting here is worth 3 points. And if you realize something, there's no other variables. All of these 3 moves are all gote moves, which means black has to give up the tempo to white. So if all of these moves are gote, all of these moves won't give you a tempo, then it is a no-brainer that you should go with the biggest move on the board, which is connecting here, 3 points. White connects here, and black takes the last endgame move. Very simple. So endgame in Go is pretty much this kind of way of thinking, okay? Judging the value, 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, whether or not there is sente, and whether or not there is continuous value after a move. So if you play a move that's kind of sente, your opponent doesn't respond, can you keep extracting value on the next move and the next move? Pretty much this kind of thinking for endgame is the foundation thinking for endgame. Okay? What I mean by foundation is if you understand the principle and the concept in this video, what you see in the single digit queue and down level endgames is going to click instantly. Okay, it's going to really click as you move up the ranks. And that's really the beauty of Go. Like in Go, you make sure you learn the structured principles, you learn the principle, the theory, and you build on top of the principles and the skill set you've learned. So in your next 9x9 game, keep in mind the sente, the gote, and the endgame importance, the importance of the endgame. Sometimes you might not know, you might not realize, you might be losing 4 to 5 points. But by playing a perfect endgame and your opponent messing up a few endgame moves, you turn the entire game around. And that's going to feel really, really good where you actually get a clutch by playing a perfect endgame. I'll see you guys in the next lesson. Bye bye.